The sound of the crowd echoed through the stands of the Los Angeles Greyhound Park. Shouts, applause, and excited chatter filled the air as spectators bet on the fastest dogs in the competition. In the center of the track, Bolt, a muscular greyhound with bright, agile eyes, anxiously awaited the starting gun. His body was shaking with an almost electric energy. He knew that this was his final test, his greatest challenge. Ryan Hunter, the owner, was positioned near the finish line, wearing an expensive suit and a cold countenance. For him, Bolt was an investment, nothing more. "You're my sure bet, Bolt. Don't let me down," he muttered to himself, watching intently the dog that had already won him dozens of trophies and a lot of money. The starting gun echoed like thunder, and Bolt took off. He ran as if he were flying, each stride meticulously calculated. The crowd went wild as Bolt took the lead within the first few meters. His speed was unmatched, and it seemed inevitable that he would cross the finish line as the winner once again. But then it happened. A few meters from the final straight, a collective cry of shock went up in the stadium. Bolt's agile body suddenly stumbled and he fell sideways onto the track. His back leg was bent at an angle it shouldn't have been. He tried to get up, but the pain made him howl loudly, a sound that echoed throughout the venue and cut to the heart of many spectators. In the stands, some stood up in concern, while others muttered words of disappointment. For Ryan Hunter, the incident was more than a setback. It was a loss. He didn't look at Bolt with empathy, but with coldness. With a sigh, he took his phone out of his pocket and made a brief call. "Send someone to remove the dog from the track. It's all over for him." Bolt was hastily removed. In the parking lot behind the stadium, he was put into a pickup truck, still gasping in pain. Ryan watched, but not with pity. He shook his head, muttering, "I'm not spending a dime on you. Your era is over." That night, Los Angeles was facing a storm. Lightning lit up the sky as the rain cascaded down. In a vacant lot on the outskirts of the city, Bolt was unceremoniously thrown out of the truck. He hit the muddy ground, his legs shaking and bruised. The vehicle's engine rumbled and disappeared into the darkness. Bolt tried to get up, but the pain overwhelmed him. He was alone, with the torrential rain soaking his fur. His gaze, once full of determination and life, now reflected only confusion and fear. He howled once more, a sound that was lost in the vastness of the night. When Ryan got home, he paid no more attention to what had happened. For him, Bolt was history. "Tomorrow I'll find someone else to train with," he thought indifferently as he closed the door to the mansion. Meanwhile, in the vacant lot, the rain continued to fall, and the fallen champion remained motionless, struggling to survive. The storm that had hit Los Angeles the night before had turned the streets into muddy rivers and left the city shrouded in a damp fog. Noah Carter, a construction worker with calloused hands and shoulders bowed by a hard life, was driving his old pickup truck as he returned home to Dallas. He had no reason to prolong the journey, even less so on that cold and gray morning, but something made him take a detour for a longer route. Perhaps it was the uncomfortable silence that had filled his mind since the death of his son 2 years earlier. As his headlights cut through the fog, Noah spotted something that made him slam on the brakes. On the roadside, between piles of rubble and puddles of muddy water, a dark figure lay motionless. His instinct told him to keep going, to ignore it. "It's probably just garbage," he muttered, trying to dispel his curiosity. But something was bothering him. An inexplicable impulse made him get out of the truck, despite the fine rain that was still falling. As he got closer, his heart raced. It was a dog. A skinny greyhound with dull eyes. The animal was curled up, trembling, its hind leg clearly deformed. "Oh my God," whispered Noah, kneeling down beside the dog. The animal opened its eyes and tried to pull away, uttering a low moan, but it didn't have the strength to run. Noah carefully held out his hand. "Calm down, kid. I'm not going to hurt you." Bolt looked at him with a mixture of fear and resignation, as if he knew his life was hanging by a thread. Noah swallowed. He wasn't the kind of man who looked for trouble, let alone took in animals. His house was already an emotional burden, empty since the death of his son, and he knew he barely had the strength to look after himself. "I can't do this," he muttered, getting up, but his eyes couldn't move away from the dog. Bolt's distant howl echoed in his mind, a vivid memory of his own pain. "Damn," he muttered, removing his jacket and wrapping it around the animal's thin body. Carefully, he lifted Bolt and placed him in the truck. "This isn't my problem," he said aloud, as if trying to convince himself. "I'm just going to take you somewhere safe. That's all." On the way, Bolt remained motionless, breathing hard in the passenger seat. Noah, restless, cast quick glances at the dog as he drove. "You remind me of him," he muttered, before shaking his head. When they got home, Noah improvised a bed in the corner of the living room with an old blanket. He looked at the dog, now asleep, and noticed the wounds on its leg and flank. "You need real help," he said, more to himself than to the animal. Even though he hesitated, Noah grabbed a first aid kit. He carefully cleaned the wounds, speaking quietly the whole time. "I don't know what happened to you, but it seems life hasn't been fair, huh?" Bolt, exhausted, couldn't resist the care. He just watched the man with eyes that conveyed a mixture of gratitude and pain. When Noah had finished, he sighed and sat down on the floor next to the dog. "That's all I can do today, kid. Tomorrow we'll see what to do with you." But deep down, Noah already knew he was involved. Something in Bolt's gaze touched a part of him that he had buried since losing his son. Outside, the storm had passed, but inside Noah's house, the real hurricane was just beginning. The morning sun came timidly through the dust-covered windows of Noah Carter's house. The silence was broken only by Bolt's paused breathing, still curled up on the makeshift blanket. Noah, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee in his hands, watched the dog. The tiredness on the Greyhound's face reminded him of the sleepless nights he had spent looking after his young son during asthma attacks. "You need more than I can offer, kid," he muttered, bringing the coffee to his lips. But something inside him prevented him from simply calling the local services and giving the animal up for adoption. Just then, a firm knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Lisa Taylor, the local veterinarian, known in the small community for her dedication to animals. Lisa was someone Noah had avoided since the death of his son. He didn't want to face anyone who might try to break through the barriers he had built around himself. "Noah," called Lisa, opening the door cautiously, "I was told you found an injured dog." He looked at her in surprise and then at Bolt. "It's already news around here, is it?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Lisa gave a slight smile. "A small town has its ways. May I come in?" Without waiting for an answer, she went straight in and walked straight up to Bolt. The dog raised his head with difficulty, eyeing the stranger suspiciously. Lisa knelt down, examining him gently. "He's dehydrated and seems to have fractured his leg. You've done a good job cleaning the wounds, but he needs more care." "I'm not a vet," Noah replied, crossing his arms. "I just did what I could." "You've done more than most," Lisa retorted firmly. She stood up and faced Noah. "I can help, but it will take time. Are you willing to look after him until he recovers?" Noah hesitated. Bolt watched him with watchful eyes, as if waiting for an answer that would determine his fate. Finally, Noah sighed. "I don't exactly have a plan, but if you think he can improve, we'll do what's necessary." Lisa smiled slightly. "He can recover? Yes, but it will be a slow process. I'll get some medication and equipment to immobilize his leg. In the meantime, keep him comfortable and, above all, close to you. He needs to trust that he's safe." Over the next few weeks, Noah's routine began to change. Every day, he found himself more involved in Bolt's care. Lisa visited regularly, bringing medication, guidance, and sometimes even home-cooked food to make sure Noah was eating properly, too. "You're more stubborn than I thought," joked Lisa on one of her visits, as she helped Noah change Bolt's bandages. "I'm not stubborn," he replied with a slight smile. "I just do what I have to." As time went by, Bolt began to improve. His eyes began to shine again, and he was able to make small movements. Noah, for his part, found himself talking to the dog in moments of solitude. "You remind me so much of Danny," he said one evening while stroking Bolt's head. "The way you look, you seem to understand." The bond between the two grew naturally, as if Bolt was filling a void that Noah had never imagined could be filled again. One morning, Lisa arrived at Noah's house for another visit. When she entered, she was surprised to find the living room clean and tidy, with the smell of fresh coffee in the air. "It's different around here," she commented, raising an eyebrow. "Well, having frequent visitors has forced me to clean up the mess," Noah replied, with a slight smile. While examining Bolt, Lisa paused. "You know, Noah, I don't think Bolt is just any dog. He has markings and characteristics that make me think he was a racing dog. I know someone who can help us find out more about his past." Noah hesitated. What if that past is something he should forget? Maybe it is, but it could give us answers. And, who knows, a way to help him even more, Lisa said firmly. Noah looked at Bolt, who now seemed more confident and connected to him. Despite his reservations, he knew that the next step would be to uncover the dog's past. The morning was sunny, but a restlessness hung over Noah's house. Bolt, lying on his blanket, seemed more active, raising his head at every noise coming from the street. Lisa arrived on time, carrying a laptop and a folder of documents. "I've got some information," she announced, placing the laptop on the kitchen table. "I spoke to a friend who works with race records. He helped me identify Bolt." Noah pulled up a chair, crossing his arms. "And what did you find out?" Lisa clicked through a few pages before turning the screen to Noah. An image of Bolt in his glory days appeared on the monitor. He was on a running track, muscular and vibrant, with a number pinned to his back. "This is him, right?" Noah nodded, surprised. "Yes, without a doubt. His full name was Thunderbolt, and he was one of the fastest racing dogs on the Los Angeles circuit. He won several important competitions, until, apparently, he disappeared without explanation a few months ago," Lisa explained while reading the data. "Disappeared? What do you mean?" Noah asked, frowning. "I suspect he's been disposed of," said Lisa, with a serious tone of voice. "Rumor has it that Ryan Hunter, his owner, has a reputation for abandoning dogs that can no longer compete." The name Ryan Hunter made Noah clench his fists. He stood up and started walking around the room. So Bolt was just another tool for this guy? And when he was no good anymore, he was thrown away like garbage? Lisa watched him, sensing the growing anger. "Unfortunately, it's not uncommon in this environment. Many people treat animals as disposable commodities, but we can't prove anything yet." Noah looked at Bolt, who was now sitting up, watching them with watchful eyes. "I'm not going to let that guy get his hands on him again. Bolt has a new home here with me." Lisa hesitated. "That might not be so simple. Now that we know who he is, Hunter might find out that Bolt is here. If he wants to, he can try to claim him." Noah laughed bitterly. "Let him try." The next few days were quiet until the news leaked out. Someone in the community, perhaps through carelessness, mentioned Bolt's story to a local journalist. Soon, photos of the injured Greyhound and his journey to recovery were featured in a short online article. The title, "From Champion to Abandoned, Bolt's Fight for Life." The reaction was immediate. While many readers were moved, others saw an opportunity to gain something from the situation. Among them, Ryan Hunter. One hot afternoon, Noah heard the sound of a pickup truck pulling up abruptly in front of his house. He got out, his expression already heavy. Two men in suits got out of the vehicle, accompanied by a third who appeared to be the driver. "Mr. Carter?" asked one of the men with an authoritative tone. "It's me," Noah replied, crossing his arms. "We're lawyers representing Mr. Ryan Hunter," continued the man, taking an envelope from his briefcase. We've come to inform you that Mr. Hunter has legal rights to this dog, known as Thunderbolt. He demands its immediate return." Noah laughed, but it was a dry laugh, full of fury. "Hunter abandoned him. He no longer has any rights over him." "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Carter," replied the lawyer. "And, without proof, Mr. Hunter remains the registered owner of the animal." Lisa appeared in the doorway, holding a folder. "Perhaps you should reconsider this," she said firmly. She handed the lawyers documents detailing Bolt's state of health when he was found, including photos and the initial diagnosis. "This is negligence," Lisa declared, "and I'm willing to testify against Mr. Hunter if he decides to go through with it." The lawyers exchanged tense glances. "We'll consult with our client," said one of them, stepping back. As soon as they were gone, Noah let out a heavy sigh. "This is going to end badly," he muttered. "Maybe, but now we have something to fight for," replied Lisa. Noah looked at Bolt, who stood next to him, quiet but vigilant. "You're not going back to that man, kid. Not as long as I can stop it." Tension was in the air. Noah knew that the fight for Bolt wouldn't be simple, but he was increasingly determined to protect the dog. The story of Bolt's abandonment had gained local repercussions, and to Noah's surprise, support from the community began to grow. People from different neighborhoods sent messages of solidarity, offering help or sharing stories of how Bolt had inspired them. Lisa, tireless as ever, had gone one step further. "I've found someone who can help us," she told Noah one morning. "Chloe Bennett. She worked as Ryan Hunter's assistant and has enough stories to ruin his reputation." Noah was skeptical. "And why would she do that now? Why didn't she speak up before?" "She said she was afraid. But with all this attention, maybe she feels the time is right," Lisa replied. Chloe arrived at Noah's house the following afternoon. She was a young woman with a shy but determined look, and she seemed to carry the weight of years of silence. "I knew what Hunter did," she began, her voice trembling. "He treated the dogs like machines. When they got hurt or slowed down, he simply discarded them." "And Bolt?" asked Noah, crossing his arms, trying to hide his growing anger. "Bolt was his pride," continued Chloe. "Hunter always said that Thunderbolt was his golden ticket, but when he got hurt, Hunter considered him useless. I was the one who overheard the call he made to order them to abandon him." Chloe's words confirmed what Noah had already feared, but now there was something else. A witness. "Are you willing to tell this publicly?" asked Lisa, her hand firmly on Chloe's shoulder. She hesitated, looking at Noah and Bolt, who was lying next to them, watching with his watchful eyes. "If it means justice for him, I'll do it." With Lisa and Chloe's help, Noah organized a local event to expose the truth. They chose the city's Central Park, a place that always attracted people at weekends. When the day arrived, Bolt was brought to the event with a special collar. The community already knew his story, but seeing him there, standing next to Noah, with a sparkle of life in his eyes, brought a wave of applause and emotional murmurs. Chloe was the first to speak. Holding a microphone, she faced the crowd. "I worked for Ryan Hunter for 3 years. I saw things that made me lose faith in humanity. But what happened to Bolt was the last straw." She recounted in detail how Hunter abandoned the dogs and showed only the glamorous side of racing. The crowd reacted with outrage. Many people started recording with their cell phones, sharing Chloe's testimony in real time. Noah was the next to speak. "I didn't know Bolt before I met him that stormy night, but as I looked at him, injured and alone, I saw something more than a discarded dog. I saw a survivor. He deserves more than being treated like garbage. He deserves justice." The highlight of the event was when Bolt took a few steps in front of the crowd. He still limped, but his confident gaze and firm posture drew applause and tears from those present. Meanwhile, far away, Ryan Hunter watched it all on television in his mansion. His face hardened when Chloe mentioned his name. "Idiots," he muttered, getting up from the sofa. He picked up the phone and made a call. "I want to sue all of them, and spare no effort." However, the repercussions were inevitable. Social media was flooded with videos of Bolt and the event, while local newspapers began investigating the allegations against Hunter. When Hunter's lawyers sent more legal threats, Lisa sprang into action. "They can try to intimidate, but now we have evidence and public support, and we're not backing down." In the days that followed, the case took on regional proportions. Bolt became a symbol of resilience, and the local community rallied to protect him. Hunter, on the other hand, was beginning to feel the pressure of his crumbling reputation. The final showdown was approaching, but Noah knew he was no longer alone in this fight. With Lisa, Chloe, and the whole community by his side, he was ready to face anything. The tension was reaching its peak. Ryan Hunter, determined to regain control of the narrative and save his reputation, arranged a press conference. His strategy was simple: deny everything. Paint Bolt as a stolen animal and downplay Chloe's accounts and the records of neglect presented by Lisa. Meanwhile, Noah, Lisa, and Chloe gathered their strength for the next step, to take Bolt public, this time in court, where the truth would finally be confronted definitively. The lobby of the luxury hotel was full of reporters, cameras, and lights. Hunter, dressed impeccably in a gray suit, stood in the center of the stage. His expression was controlled, but there was something forced about his smile. "These allegations against me are unfounded and malicious," he began. "I have always treated my animals with the utmost respect and care. Thunderbolt, or Bolt as they call him now, is a dog that I have raised and cared for since he was a puppy. He was stolen from me and used as a tool in a campaign to tarnish my name." As he spoke, Chloe, watching from home along with Noah and Lisa, clenched her fists. "Liar," she muttered. Noah, standing next to Bolt, stroked the Greyhound's head. "He can say whatever he wants. The evidence is on our side." Days later, the two parties met in court. Hunter arrived, surrounded by a team of lawyers and a few supporters. Noah entered discreetly, accompanied by Lisa, Chloe, and Bolt, who was now walking more confidently, even with his slight limp. The judge began the proceedings, and the first few hours were dedicated to the accusations from both sides. Hunter, through his lawyers, argued that Bolt was his property and that Noah had illegally kept the dog. When it was Chloe's turn to testify, the court was silent. She took a deep breath, facing Hunter's cold gaze, and began to speak. "I worked for Ryan Hunter for 3 years. I saw with my own eyes what he did to dogs that didn't meet his expectations. They were discarded as if they were objects, not living beings." She presented records of conversations, including a text message sent by Hunter to an employee. "Get rid of Thunderbolt. I don't want to spend any more on him." The impact was immediate. Hunter's lawyers tried to argue that the message was ambiguous, but the evidence was too clear to ignore. Lisa then presented Bolt's medical records. When Bolt was found, he was malnourished, injured, and in a state of neglect. No animal gets to that point if it has received proper care. The most powerful moment was when Noah was called to the stand. He told in detail about the night he found Bolt and how the dog struggled to survive. "He's not just an animal to me. Bolt is a symbol of resilience. He was thrown away like garbage, but he found the strength to live. And I won't allow him to go back to someone who only sees him as a tool." Hunter tried to fight back, arguing that Bolt was his rightful property. But the final blow came when a video of Bolt, staggering and visibly injured, was shown in court. It was a recording made by a neighbor on the night Bolt was abandoned. The court was silent as the video showed Bolt, drenched by the rain, trying to get up from the vacant lot. After days of tension, the judge finally gave his decision. Bolt would remain with Noah, and Ryan Hunter was ordered to pay heavy fines for neglect and mistreatment. In addition, an official investigation was opened into Hunter's practices in dog racing. Noah let out a relieved sigh while Lisa and Chloe smiled, thrilled. Bolt, as if he knew something had changed, licked Noah's hand, his gaze full of gratitude. The start of Second Chance Sanctuary. With his victory, Noah decided to transform the farm where he lived into something bigger, a refuge for injured and abandoned dogs. With the help of Lisa and Chloe, Second Chance Sanctuary began to take shape. Bolt's story attracted donations and volunteers from all over the region. Bolt, and now with a renewed sparkle in his eyes, became the sanctuary's emblem. His image was used in campaigns to raise awareness of animal abandonment and neglect. At a ceremony to inaugurate the sanctuary, Noah spoke to a crowd. "Bolt taught me something I'd forgotten. Even in our worst moments, there's always a chance to start again. And that's what we want to give here. A second chance, not just for the animals, but for all of us." As the applause echoed, Bolt lay down next to Noah, his new home finally secure. Months have passed since Second Chance Sanctuary opened. The refuge has grown rapidly, attracting attention from all over the country. Bolt, now fully recovered, was the face of the place, welcoming visitors and setting an example for the rescued animals. His story inspired every new volunteer and donor who crossed the sanctuary's gates. Noah, who had previously lived cloistered in his pain, found a renewed purpose. He spent his days caring for the dogs and sharing Bolt's story with children who visited the sanctuary on school trips. He would often stop to watch the little ones playing with Bolt and the other dogs, feeling a connection with his son that was no longer marked only by sadness. "I can see it in every smile," Noah commented to Lisa one day, as the two watched a little girl throw a ball for Bolt. "He'd love to be here." Lisa, who had become more than a friend, put her hand on his shoulder. "And, in a way, he is. All this stuff you've built, it's part of him too." Bolt gained more than a new lease of life. He became an inspiration. Awareness programs were created around his story, with regular visits to the shrine from schools, families, and even public figures. The image of Bolt, with his scar on his leg, has become a symbol of resilience, appearing on T-shirts, posters, and campaigns to combat animal abandonment. At one of the events organized by the sanctuary, Chloe Bennett took to the stage to speak. Her voice was firm, but carried an emotion that touched every person present. "I was part of the problem for a long time," she admitted, "but Bolt gave me the courage to do the right thing. And today, I'm here to say that everyone deserves a second chance, humans and animals." The applause was thunderous, and Chloe, now one of the sanctuary's leaders, found volunteer work a way to make amends for the past. One evening, after all the volunteers had left and the dogs were settled, Noah sat on the porch with Bolt by his side. He held an old picture frame, the only one he still kept of his son. "He would have loved you, you know," Noah said, stroking Bolt's soft fur. "Danny always wanted a dog. I never let him because I didn't think we had time. And look where we are now." Bolt, as if he understood, laid his head on Noah's lap, offering the silent comfort that only an animal can provide. At that moment, Noah felt something he hadn't experienced for a long time: peace. It wasn't a complete overcoming, but it was a start. Second Chance Sanctuary has become a landmark in the region, saving dozens of injured and neglected dogs. The work of Noah, Lisa, Chloe, and the volunteers has spread, inspiring other communities to start similar projects. On one of the last visits to a school, a little girl approached Noah and pointed to Bolt. "Is he really Bolt from the stories?" she asked, her eyes shining. Noah smiled and nodded. "Yes, that's him. The same one who didn't give up when all seemed lost." The girl stroked Bolt, who was wagging his tail happily. "He's a hero," she said. Noah looked at Bolt, now more than a companion, a symbol of hope and resilience. "Yes, he is," he replied, with a smile. As the sun set behind the horizon, illuminating the fields of the sanctuary, Noah felt that, despite the losses and the struggles, he had found a way, not just for Bolt, but for himself and everyone who crossed the gates of Second Chance Sanctuary. Bolt, alongside Noah, was living proof that, with love and determination, even the most difficult stories can have an ending full of redemption and hope.